This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just a vape show. It's just a vape show. Vape show. This is an intro. Who needs an intro? I don't need an intro. This is just a vape show. It's just a vape show. Vape show.
The Merlin Mini. Yeah. Still playing catch up. Still playing catch up. Still working on the backlog. We're getting through it. It's vastly improved for me over the original Merlin. I really, really like it over the original Merlin, me personally. I know the original Merlin, a lot of people really love that device. For me, it was just a little bit too tight. It was just too tight. You know, I don't like, a restrictive draw too much. I like an airy draw for the most part. And this one, you can still make it a very restrictive draw. You know, you have that option. You still get that little nubbin sort of air restriction thing that you screw down into the airflow and the single airflow option. It turns it into just a pinhole of airflow. You still have that with the V2, but the airflow on that single coil option is just so much bigger. There's so much more air, and I find myself actually tightening this down to about halfway open on this single fused Clapton coil, 8 wraps, 28 gauge with 40 gauge over it.
Well, folks, it's time to kick it old school, so you can feel cool. Give it to me, baby. Baby. Yeah.
I find myself closing it down about halfway so that it's not too airy, and I'm still getting just massive flavor and excellent vapor production too. See, with the original Merlin, it had just the tightest draw for me. Even with that restriction piece taking out, I couldn't enjoy an exotic build on it. And it's, built really well with a lot of really nice deck space and a decent sized 2-post deck, where that 2-post deck is enough to accommodate, not like it doesn't accommodate Staggertons, for example, but it'll accommodate, some alien coils. It'll accommodate some fused Clapton coils. It'll accommodate some decent builds in there. And this time it's got the airflow that allows me to appreciate those kinds of builds in this little device. Even at just 40 watts on this 0.5 ohm build, and sometimes I vape it down at around 30, 35 even, and I'm perfectly happy. Maybe close it down a little bit more even, a little bit more than halfway. Yeah, there's plenty of air on this thing. See, I feel like right there, with the airflow, so that's like 1/3 of the way open is where the airflow was on the original Merlin. That's how I remember it. You know, it just didn't have enough air for me, and I just couldn't appreciate it that way. With this, it's got everything I loved about the Merlin. Single coil, RTA sort of build deck, and it also has, you know, the dual deck too, which I haven't really played around with too much because I'm really excited about a single coil RTA that has, you know, a decent build deck, that has decent airflow, and that's what this is right now. It's really, really, really nice. I'm actually going to end up giving this to my wife, I think, because she really likes this, and it's a whiz to wick. It's so easy to wick this thing. It's just a massive amount of cotton, big bulbous cotton on either side, and just stuff them into those juice wells, those juice pockets on either side, and it's just fantastic. I've re-wicked this thing about 2-3 times, and it just performs consistently and perfectly every single time with that massive bit of cotton ball sticking out of each end of the coil and just shoved into those pockets. I love it. It's easy for me to maintain for her. It works really, really well, really well. It's the looks of the device too. It's a looker as far as tanks go. I like the curves on it, the little, you know, nuances of it. One thing that's really interesting and kind of boggles my mind a little bit is how the wicking is kind of protected. You know, sometimes some tanks, you know, the wicking comes out of the wicking holes and you can see it the whole time, and it just kind of bothersome seeing it there. Well, with this one, it's like they close it off. You can't see the wicking in there. It's just always closed off. But there's juice flow between that metal sort of inlay there, and it makes it to the coil, and it keeps everything wonderfully saturated. I haven't had any issues with dry hits, or, you know, I'm not seeing my juice just transform in color. It's not burning the juice in there. It's just perfect. It vapes very, very, very well, especially for a single coil RTA system. I love the little Augvape logo, that Infinity S sort of logo there. It looks really cool. It's the way that it's displayed there prominently inside the tank. You can see it clearly. The glass is just crystal clear on this thing. The bottom is serialized. I've got number 53. It's got a nice engraving on the serialization and the branding on the bottom of the deck. Really, really nicely done there. Threads on everything. Beautiful, beautiful threads everywhere. It's really easy to open and close. And one thing that I've really noticed about it is it can be completely full. I can take off the top cap and it's not leaking out the airflow holes at all. Normally, with most RTAs, I find if, you know, usually you take off the top cap, well, there's juice in there and it's going to leak right out the sides, you know, especially if it's full. But this one's not doing that. Not at all. Now, the way it's engineered, the way that it all comes together is really nice. The way it's built, it's all very clean. It's well made. And that's something that I noticed with the original Merlin. Very well made. And this is just like it. Very well made as well. The machining is very nice here. I can build bigger coils on this and turn it up way, way, way higher if I want to. All the way open, I'm going to turn it up to about 50 watts. We're firing this coil at more than 5 volts. Not a burn hit. Vape's great. You've got options with this RTA. You can go the single coil with crazy wide airflow. You can go with a dual coil. You can go with, you know, the restrictor on the single coil and make it a mouth to lung kind of vape. It's got a lot of options here. Packaging's really nice too. I really like the packaging on this. Not so much the font. I mean, who cares? But I'm a stickler for packaging. I like packaging. I like minimalism, don't get me wrong, but that's just a little bit, it's a little bit much. I like that the specs are all listed on the bottom. I think it's kind of cool how they shoved all those specs onto the bottom right there. That's just a little bit creative. I dig that. But when you pop it open, you know, you've got your Allen wrench sitting right up top. Then you've got like these layers. You go through layers with this packaging. It's like in the first layer you find your RTA, then the second layer you find your spares, and the third layer you have your spare deck. It's just cool the way it's all laid out like that. I just dig it for some reason. And the drip tip that comes with the Merlin is always super comfortable too. I like the drip tip. It's got that, it's what gives that Merlin just that little extra punch for me. I mean, you can use your standard drip tips, but I like the drip tip that comes with the Merlin. I like the little swoop and curve that it comes with, how it kind of has an oblong kind of hourglass kind of figure to the drip tip. It's got a nice conical chamber as well. Plenty of flavor coming out of a conical chamber. Always like that. The one thing about the Merlin that really kind of irks me is the way the airflow is positioned. And that's just on any RTA that doesn't have a base. I don't like that you just leave a base off an RTA and leave the airflow ring at the bottom. The airflow adjustment ring is difficult to move when it's right there on top of your mod. It's just not easy. Why not lift it up a little bit? Why not put it underneath a base? And that goes for any RTA that decides to do this, where the airflow adjustment makes contact with the mod. It's like, to adjust it, I have to sink my nail into the airflow adjustment and spin it that way. It's just not conducive to being turned. It's like this knurling on the bottom. It's just three tiny little knurls. Three tiny little indentations is all there is for knurling on the bottom. And they're rounded and they're not deep and they're not grippy at all. So opening up the airflow and closing it sucks. And that's true of a lot of devices. So I'm not really coming down on the device too hard for it. It's like, to adjust the airflow, if I closed it all the way down, I can't. I'm trying to adjust the airflow right now and I just keep spinning the top off the mod. It's like you have to sink the meat of your fingers into the airflow and then turn it that way, or use your nail and then you can do it. I wish that these manufacturers would put the base underneath the airflow adjustments. That's all. And they need better knurling on the airflow adjustment ring in general. That's really as much of a gripe as I can come up with for this device. It's actually very, very good, especially for a single coil RTA. Very good. Till next time, I'm your homeboy Josh. Vape on, Vapers.